Someone has calculated that over the last 2,000 years or so, there have only been a handful of days without some kind of open conflict or war or fighting among one or more nations. I think we also know that's probably the case among personal individuals. The Bible tells us in James chapter 4, verse 1, where do wars and fightings come from among you? Do they not come from your desires for pleasure that war among your members? Two or three important words or terms as we think about the first verse of the 4th chapter of the book of James. First of all, I want you to notice it asks the question, where do wars and fightings come? Some have even translated this as quarrels. You get the idea here that it's not necessarily a global war like World War I or World War II, but this is a perhaps better stated as conflict. That there's always some kind of conflict, whether it be international or personal or just between me and one other individual. Conflict. But I want you to notice further that the text right here reads, where do these conflicts come from among you? This is being written to the church. This is being written to New Testament Christians. This is not talking about the problems that the church has with the world. This is talking about, sadly, sometimes the problems that individual Christians have with fellow individual Christians. And we have to be careful that we live our lives in such a way that we're not characterized as always quarreling, fighting, and having conflict. But the question is asked, what causes it? Where does it come from? The next sentence says it comes from the selfish ambitions or the selfish desires and pleasures that we have that are warring within us. All fights start within myself. I can fight with dozens and dozens of people, but it all started in one place. That's in me. And the idea here that is sometimes translated as desires for pleasure is also translated as passions. In other words, I have this desire, I have this passion. I want something, but I don't want you to have it. Or you have something, and I don't want you to have it. And so it causes conflict. It causes fighting. It causes warring. It causes a fight. And it's a very sad situation when my passions become to the point that I fight with other people about the things that I want or I don't want you to have. Really, we're talking about selfishness. We look like a bunch of children sometimes fighting over the last toys on the floor. Maybe that is an insult to children. We look like a bunch of wild dogs fighting over the last bone or last scrap that's thrown out to them. Sometimes based on the way we treat one another, maybe that's even an insult to dogs. Let's live our lives as unselfishly as possible and serve God and one another faithfully.